to combat all this, I don't know, end times frenzy. Because if you understand your covenant, it doesn't much matter if it's the end times or not. You don't need fear to sell tickets to your sermon. You don't have to show up on Sunday to find out when the asteroid's coming. What you need to do is be secure in your covenant and know what that means and make sure you're in the right one. In defining terms, because words in the New Testament are defined in the Old Testament, like lion. And if you don't know who the lion is from the Old Testament, you're going to do something stupid in Revelation and assign Babylon's lion to Jesus, my king. We don't do that. Please don't wait for the Lion of the tribe of Judah to come and save you. It's the wrong guy. Just saying. Hi, and welcome to our Bible study channel.
Energy. Energy. You cannot fuck with this. Energy. You cannot fuck with this energy. Love to all those in the flesh. All of those who are listening. Don't miss the message, judging me. You cannot fuck with this energy. Energy.
These are videos that go pretty in depth. First thing you should probably do is pause and read our 12 rules for reading biblical text. And if you don't like the 12 rules or you don't understand the 12 rules, well, I don't have time to explain them all. Go back to the book that I wrote and uploaded on this channel, which takes you through the entire arc and how we made these quote-unquote 12 rules as a framework of what we found after 7 years digging meticulously and carefully through the text. So if you're confused, go do that. If I refer back, well, that's probably because we actually post these things in order. So they're all done in series. And if you jump in at the middle of a series without any schema or background knowledge, and you get all pissed off, well, that's also not our problem. This is a group where we go line by line, scroll by scroll through the text. Warning, we are not language sensitive, so if you can't handle some cussing, it's not the place for you. We also do not endorse nor approve of pretty much any mainstream theology. So if you're looking for that, also definitely not the place for you. We do a video about the characters that we use in our Bible study series. And the reason we do this is sort of so that they can kind of get in your head. So we do have a video explaining why we chose the people we chose and how their sort of energy characteristics go along with the biblical characters to modernize it for people so they know what the heck we're reading. Clearly, the Roman Church was not doing their job and looking for the lost sheep of the reunited House of David. So that's what we're doing, okay? We're taking that away from them because they screwed it up. The brilliant rabbis also down there in Babylon are also not looking for the lost sheep of the reunited kingdom of David. So you're not going to hear, let's follow Rome. And you're not going to hear, let's follow the rabbis on this channel. Because, you know, sorry, not sorry, but the Bible wasn't actually written for the corrupt Levitical priesthood post-Babylon and Persia to read it through their little janky books. And it also wasn't written to be read through the eyes of pagan 4th century church fathers. So we're not doing that either. You guys can both have a seat. Oddly enough, the Bible also wasn't written to be read through the eyes of some dumbass scholars with pieces of paper that say they're smarter than everyone, but have never seen a Davidic covenant in their life. Not written for them either. You know who it's written for? It's written for the reunited house of David, who are actually in covenant and are actually the sheep. That's who it's written for. That's why nobody else can understand what the heck's going on. What you are going to hear is what you're supposed to hear, which is, let's follow the king. And let's get started.
So, we are going to war.
Hello. We are continuing on with our Babylonian fuckery psalm, Psalm 78. And this is part 4 of 5 parts, okay? And this is going to be a doozy today. So again, get out your notebooks. We are finally going to audit the Lion of the tribe of Judah in our lovely spiraling curriculum that never ends. Okay. Today's agenda. We're going to go ahead and review Genesis 48. We're going to recast Genesis 49. We began that last time with Simeon and Levi. We're going to just continue today with Judah in Genesis 49, which is the big one. That's the one that everybody points to for Judah. And the Lion of the tribe of Judah identifying as Jesus. We're going to go through a little bit of our Greek grammar in Revelation 5:5 and clear that up a little more, tighten that up a little bit. We're going to take a look at Micah. And, well, next, after that, we got to get into dating genealogy and Caleb and Joshua mess and some of the scholars who claim the proof of Judah supremacy is found with the quote-unquote Essenes. We'll get to that eventually. But first, I want to redefine. We've done this already, but just a quick review. The premise here that we are laying out is that Babylon is the lion, period. That doesn't change. You can't have Babylon as the lion all through the whole Bible and then suddenly just change it to Jesus in the end and do a switcheroony in the book of Revelation. That's not going to hold up to audit. So what is Babylon? We are giving the premise that Babylon is the lion of the tribe of Judah, or the lion from Judah. And this can be Babylon is a literal place. It also has ritual, religious infrastructure, political jurisdictional possession, and political infrastructure. So we've got a lot going on here when we're talking about Babylon, and the metaphor for Babylon is the devouring lion. It is not majesty and kingship, okay? It is false jurisdictional possession. That's our premise. And it stays that way all the way through. So don't be coming up in here trying to convince me that Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. No. The whole world is following the beast. Okay? We've done, as a review, we've seen Psalm 78, which is, the anchor of this rabbit hole, was auditing Psalm 78. And we laid that out as a ritual curse to maintain Judah's supremacy. But we found out that, it's not really Judah. It's our Levite Persian priesthood of elites coming back from the Babylonian captivity, right? And that led us down several rabbit holes, including the dual Moses jurisdictional claim, the Exodus split, that ritual, that janky circumcision ritual done on Moses. Interestingly enough, we'll revisit a circumcision ritual briefly today. Also, it led to that Exodus split in the two different stories. which leads us back to the eating food sacrificed to idols in one story, making sure everyone's eating up that meat and listing out how it's prepared real carefully, right? And then the other story is completely different. And this, another rabbit hole we found in auditing 78 was the angel laws in this killer logos entity that seems to show up. That's not in the Davidic line of the two stories, right? We have the Levitical story and we have the Davidic story. And that's sort of how Exodus was shaping up once we audited that psalm. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you probably shouldn't be listening to this video. What you should be doing is going back and reviewing. Okay. Anyways, let's keep it moving. So, and I talk about this a lot. Genesis 48 gives us our Abrahamic covenant to Ephraim, passed down through the lineage of Joseph, right? And it's given straight to Ephraim, and Ephraim gets all three parts. All three parts, specifically naming the patriarchs. But what we need to look for, and we've read through this a lot, but we refer to it a lot, but we read through this, go back to our Ephraim series and catch that. But one thing we didn't talk about was a timestamp. And share this tab instead. We need to look for a timestamp here in Genesis 48. And you'll see why that's important in just a minute. So we're going to just skim through this quickly. He brings in the sons, and Jacob sits up on his deathbed. Jacob said to Joseph, this is important, put a pin in this one. God Almighty appeared to me at Luz, which is another name for Bethel in the land of Canaan, and blessed me there. Put a pin in those names. Luz and Bethel are the same place. He said to me, I'll give you many children, make you fruitful and multiply. I'll make you the father of many peoples, and I will give your descendants seed, the seed that's going to go all the way down through the lineage to David, right? And then from David to Jesus, same seed. I will give your seed this land forever. Just a little bit of background knowledge of these three parts of the Abrahamic covenant. Jacob is recalling God handing him the Abrahamic covenant when he appeared at Bethel. The question that arises if you're just reading this out of full context, well, I thought the Abrahamic covenant was passed down from Abraham to Isaac and from Isaac to Jacob. Yes. But there is the narrative that Jacob, quote unquote, stole the blessing from Esau. No, he didn't. He did not steal it. Esau didn't give a shit about it and was not a good covenant bearer and sold it for a pot of beans. Okay? There's no stealing happening here, except Esau trying to steal it back, but we haven't gotten there yet. Not only was it given to Jacob straight through the fathers, okay? But this is the part where Jacob is recalling it being confirmed by God. So there can be no argument like it wasn't really Jacob's, it was really Esau's, because Jacob's father was tricked. That's not valid, because God came directly to Jacob and reaffirmed all three pieces of that covenant to say, yep, it went to the right guy. You done good. Does that make sense? Okay. So then he elevates Ephraim and Manasseh. Okay. Then he kind of lays out, but Joseph, if you've got other children, then those guys are going to go according to your inheritance. But Ephraim and Manasseh are going according to my inheritance. This is what preachers like to call the adoption clause. But they weren't adopted. They were in the bloodline. They were elevated to higher covenant status, right, as aligning with the other sons. But they weren't, quote unquote, adopted, because in modern terms, adopted connotates not of the bloodline lineage. And that's just not true. Okay. Then he starts going on and on about his beloved wife, Rachel, because he never loved Leah. He loved Rachel. And we know that the covenants go through the womb of the beloved girl, right? All right. And we're going towards Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. And I buried her there beside the road. And Ephrath is Bethlehem today. Okay? Ephrath is Bethlehem. Same place. So we've got Luz and Bethel is one place. We've got Ephrath, and Bethlehem is another place. Okay. He blesses the son. And because the brothers, namely Judah, had sold Joseph into captivity, and Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. We talked about all this in the Ephraim series. Okay. But Judah sold him off. Because of that, Jacob was so happy to be back and blessed with being able to see his lineage through Joseph's sons, that he's like, fuck the other sons that sold you off. I'm so blessed to meet my grandsons after all this nightmare that they did with the selling you off and throwing you in a hole and to die and all that stuff. I'm so relieved to see my favorite son again. I thought he was dead all these years because Judah sold him off, right? I'm going to bless and elevate your sons. I thought I would never see you alive again. And now God has let me see you and your seed. So he's going to bless that seed. This is really, really important scene, you guys. Okay? This is where he crosses the hands and elevates Ephraim as the firstborn, which is confirmed over in Jeremiah, I want to say 30, but I don't memorize verse numbers. But over in Jeremiah, Ephraim is confirmed as the firstborn. He calls on the patriarchs, okay, blesses the boys, and says, and may the names of my ancestors Abraham and Isaac be known through them. Let my name be carried on through them. And he gives them land, seed, and nations. And here's the land part. God will be with you. I've given you something that I did not give to your brothers. Now, this version says the land of Shechem that I took from the Amorite people with my sword. Well, and then they're pointing to this Dinah incident, and perhaps we'll talk about the Dinah incident. The problem here is the word Shechem. This actually doesn't say Shechem. In Hebrew, it does, but it's not necessarily connotating the city, okay? It means one mountain slope. Your scholars are going to tell you that mountain slope is the town of Shechem. No. Completely and totally disagree. And we're going to look at why that can't be Shechem. So in some of these translations, you'll see them just call it out and say, it's Shechem. But what it really means is a mountain slope. And they're translating that as Shechem. Does that make sense? Because mountain slope and Shechem are similar words in the Hebrew. Does that make sense? Okay, that makes sense. This expanded version is going to tell you where they get the idea that it has to be Shechem and not translated as mountain slope. And the reason they believe that is because the story of the attack on Dinah. There's a big problem with this. In the attack on Dinah, you see here in Genesis 34. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if you go down to the footnotes, there is no footnote. Of course, there's no footnote. Why is there no footnote? Like, seriously? All right. So share this tab instead. We'll revisit that Shechem piece today. But through all of that, there was no time stamp. There was no limit on the time of this covenant. Okay? We did not see any kind of time stamp throughout Genesis 48. This Abrahamic covenant passing down to Ephraim was completely erased in favor of a Judah-centric worldview due to post-Babylon priesthood and politician edits and redactions. That's our big premise of this whole thing. And this premise has got to hold across biblical text to be accurate. So we can't just say, well, the lion is Babylon. We've got to really show that that interpretation is going to hold across different places where we see the lion pop up. Genesis 48 has that Abrahamic covenant to Ephraim, and there is this land Shechem argument. So let's look at it, or sword and bow land. That I took from the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. So he fought for this land. He battled for this land. But that's really inconvenient to the narrative of Shechem. So what your priesthood's going to do is tell you, well, he didn't really take it from the hand of the Amorites with his sword and his bow. That's just a spiritual battle. He had some kind of, he prayed a lot in the land. He didn't really take it from the Amorite with, fighting with a sword. No. He was praying. Like, that's what they're going to tell you, which makes no fucking sense. Oh, he was praying about the Amorites? Like, what? What? And they gave him land? Like, what are you talking about? Because he never fought the Amorites for the land in Shechem. And because that word that we saw means mountaintop, Shechem's in a basin, not a mountaintop. So there's another problem. But let's dig into that a little bit today. So most commentators or Bible translators, we got to watch out for those guys. And lots of those scholars, we just love those scholars, default automatically to Shechem for three main reasons. Joseph's bones were buried there, according to Joshua 24. Jacob bought land there in Genesis 33 before this Dinah fiasco. And he bought land. He didn't fight for land. He bought it. Okay. So he didn't take it from the Amorites with his sword and bow. He bought it. And Hebrew uses the word Shechem, which can mean shoulder ridge or mountaintop. So because it means shoulder ridge mountaintop, we're just going to throw that out and call it the city name. And you just say it's just Shechem. It's a city. They didn't mean mountaintop. They meant Shechem. So because the Masoretic bullshit Hebrew that they made up 500 years ago says Shechem, well, they're just going to go with that. Shechem is not a covenant transfer zone. What Shechem has is Simeon and Levite violence that they just got called out for in Genesis 49 that we went over last time. Remember that cursed violence? Don't pitch your cart to their horse because they're a bunch of assholes. Yeah, welcome to Shechem. Okay. We just talked about this in the last video. Go there. But first of all, Shechem's in the north, and it's in Ephraim territory, okay? Or what is going to be Ephraim territory. So if Jacob gave Joseph sons Shechem, that makes no sense because it's already going to be carved out as Ephraimite territory. It's just a small place within Ephraim's larger territory. So there's no reason to give it to him, especially because it's already going to Ephraim. So there's no reason to call that land out specially. But in Genesis 34, something interesting happens. And this is what's referred to in that verse. Remember I told you we're going to take a look at that. Simeon and Levi massacred Shechem. Okay, there's a massive massacre. But Jacob didn't. Jacob did not attack this town with his sword and his bow. Levi and Simeon did, and Jacob condemned them for it. There is absolutely no record of Jacob himself taking this town by force. That leads us to question, well, what land did Jacob take? And to understand this, you have to understand the story of Dinah. Now, Dinah was one of Leah's daughters. And who else is of Leah? Well, Levi and Simeon. This is Leah's sons rearing their ugly heads again. Share this tab instead. Back in Genesis 34, Dinah, who's also the daughter of Leah, right? So who are the sons of Leah? There's more, but some of the sons of Leah are Judah, Levi, and Simeon. We've talked about those. There's more, but those guys. Joseph and Benjamin are sons of Rachel. So we're talking about Leah's sons here. And Dinah is a daughter of Leah. So they're full brother-sister. Shechem, who was a Hivite, not an Amorite, doesn't say Amorite, says Hivite. The prince of the land saw her and seized her and lay with her and humiliated her. His soul was drawn to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. He loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. So somehow he attacked her, but he also loved her. Strange things happening here. So he attacked the woman that he desperately loved in his soul. So Shechem went to his father, and he said, I want this girl for my wife. Hamor was the father of Shechem, and went out to Jacob to speak with him. The sons of Jacob had come in from the field as soon as they heard of it, and the men, the sons of Jacob, were indignant and angry because he had done an outrageous thing by lying with Jacob's daughter. And he said, but the soul of my son longs for you, for your daughter. Give your daughter to him to be his wife. In marriage, we'll Wop's wife here from tribe to tribe. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourselves. Like, let's just combine up here. You can dwell with us, and the land shall be open to you. Does this sound like Jacob is taking this land from the Amorites by sword and bow? No, it doesn't. Shechem, the dude, also said to her father and her brothers, let me find favor. Whatever you say, I'll do. Only give me Dinah to be my wife. Now, the sons of Jacob answered Shechem deceitfully because he had defiled their sister Dinah. So they said to them, we can't do this. We can't give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised. Who said this? Did Jacob tell them this? No. The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and his father deceitfully, not Jacob. And they said, we can't give our sister to you because you're uncircumcised. Uh-oh. Sounds priestly to me. There's those priestly rules coming up again. Only on this condition will we agree with you. You have to become as we are by every male among you. So every male in your whole town, of your whole tribe, has to be circumcised. Then we'll give you our daughters, and we'll take your daughters, and we will dwell and become one people. But if you won't listen and be circumcised, we will take our daughter and be gone. Here we are again with the circumcision forcing. Okay? We see this with Paul and his dick obsession in Acts. We've gone through that before. And we see this with Moses. Okay? We've talked about this a lot in the Jerusalem Council letter. We talked about this with the Moses wife janky priesthood ritual. This is a priesthood ritual. Okay? Echoed all the way back from Moses's wife all the way through Paul in the Jerusalem Council, which we've already talked about, with the Pharisees, who are the Levite priesthoods. So I'll give you one guess as to which son of Jacob is forcing circumcision. I wonder which son this is. Let's find out, shall we? Let's find out. Well, their words pleased Hamor's and Hamor's son Shechem, because all they want to do is marry this chick, right? And the young man did not delay to do the thing because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. He loved Dinah. Now, he was the most honored of all his father's house. So Hamor and his son Shechem came to the gate of their city and spoke to the men of their city and said, these men are at peace with us. Let them dwell in the land of Shechem, in this land, which is AKA Shechem, and trade. For behold, the land is large enough for them. Again, does this sound like Jacob is taking this land from the Amorites by sword and bow? No, it does not. Just being clear. Only on this condition will the men agree to dwell with us and become one people, when every male among us is circumcised as they are. And all who went out of the gate of the city listened, and every male was circumcised. On the third day, when they were still sore, two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took their swords and came against the city while it felt secure, and killed all the males. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went away. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds and their donkeys and whatever was in the city and in the field, all their wealth, all their little ones and their wives, all that was in the houses, they captured and plundered. Excuse me? Does this sound like the land Jacob is talking about in Genesis 48 that he took himself with his sword from the Amorites? No, it does not. This sounds like some janky ass attack that Levi and Simeon did after they forced everyone to circumcise. Then they went and slaughtered the entire village and took all their shit. That's what this is. Okay, this is not the land that Jacob fought the Amorites with his sword and bow. That's not what this is. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have brought trouble on me, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Excuse me? So on this whole story, I haven't seen an Amorite pop in. Have you seen an Amorite in here? Haven't seen one. What did Jacob do? He certainly didn't congratulate Levi and Simeon. That's not what he did. So God said to Jacob, arise, go to Bethel and dwell there. So Jacob said to all his household, put away your foreign gods, purify yourselves, change your garments. And he got up, left Shechem, and went to Bethel, where he put down the rock, and that was his covenant place. It's a whole thing there with Bethel. We've already talked about this. And then we continue on, right? We got it? We got it. So back here, the argument from the brilliant scholars is that, well, the land that was given wasn't really Abrahamic covenant land. No. That's not what they're talking about. They're not talking about the land where Rachel was buried. They're talking about, I've given to you rather than your brother's one mountain slope. And that mountain slope has to be Shechem. Shechem. Hebrew for Shechem, which sounds like the town and district called Shechem. So does it seem like that town of Shechem is the land that he took from the Amorites with his sword and bow? Does that sound right to you? No, that doesn't sound right to me. They're fucking lying. The land is the land where Rachel died. Okay? That's where it is. It's the land where Rachel died. That would be on the way to Ephrath. That is Bethlehem. That's the land. All right. So just so we're clear, I wanted to share that with you so that we can ask ourselves, what land did Jacob actually take? Did he actually give him Shechem? No, he didn't. So we have Luz, which is Ephrath, Bethlehem. That's our registry anchor spot. Okay. In Genesis 35, Jacob renames Luz to Bethel. Genesis 35:19, Rachel dies near Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. This is registry land. This is scroll land. It's tied to his beloved wife Rachel's burial and Ephraim's covenant. The Amorites were mountain dwellers. So mountainous region, a mountain slope, is more aligned with Judah's southern slope than Shechem, which is a flat basin. Okay. So this sword and bow is a mountain slope conquest, not a northern inheritance. So Jacob's extra portion to Joseph includes registry override land, not Ephraim tribal territory in the north. It's additional land, right? It's extra land, not just the regular land Ephraim gets, but additional land, which would be Rachel's burial site, not Shechem. That's not where he fought the Amorites in. Okay, it's not Shechem. So Simeon and Levi do the Shechem massacre. Jacob condemns it and says, "You brought trouble on me." There's no covenant here. There's no registry transfer. There's just a fallout from the mess of Leah's sons again. God tells Jacob to leave Shechem, not bless the land through the Abrahamic covenant and give it to him. Like, that's somebody told him. Okay, he's like, get the fuck out of there, man. Go to Bethel and settle there. So Jacob buries foreign gods, purges the camp, and exits. He's not going to make the land he left part of the Abrahamic covenant. Like, that's not happening. That wasn't the covenant land. So Genesis 48 says that Jacob took the land by fighting the Amorites. So it can't be Shechem. Shechem was condemned, not claimed. This land has to be elsewhere. Likely Ephrath, Bethlehem, which is tied to Rachel's burial and Ephraim's covenant. It's a registry scrollback overlaid Abrahamic covenant land taken by force and given to the tent of Joseph. So to get over this land confusion here, they love to pull these games with the land. I've told you this. The green, this is what will become eventual Ephraim territory. Okay, when our 12 tribes come in and the fathers, Jacob's sons, get their land. Okay, so we've got this green part, and it's not terribly accurate because Benjamin's down there too, but whatever. That kind of represents Ephraim's land. So we've got Shechem in the north, and we've got Bethel a little bit beneath there. And both of those are in the territory of Ephraim, that Ephraim eventually gets. Below that, right on the border, Benjamin's kind of in there between. So right on the border, you've got Jerusalem within Judah. South of Jerusalem is the city of David. Put a pin in that. South, let me say that again. South of Jerusalem is the city of David. So what I'm telling you is that the city of David is not in Jerusalem. The city of David is not part of Jerusalem. It is today, sort of, kind of, because Jerusalem has a suburban sprawl, and the city has grown over time and absorbed areas and towns and villages surrounding it. Okay. But back in the day, right, Jerusalem wasn't that big. So in David's time, right, the city of David was its own thing. Solomon expanded Jerusalem and built that up with the temple. But in biblical times, the city of David was not a quote unquote region of Jerusalem. So these are two separate places. That's modern bullshit getting rewritten back onto ancient geography. And then beneath the city of David, we have the town of Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. But the distance between Jerusalem and Ephrath, which is Bethlehem, is like 5.5 miles. So we're not talking about a lot, like a long trek here, okay? These are all within 5 miles of each other. Put a pin in all of this, because you have to understand where these places are in ancient times, not modern times, in order to understand the biblical story. Now that we've reviewed that, and we've gotten a little bit of land taken care of, and we've dismissed the argument that the land given to Ephraim as part of the Abrahamic covenant was Shechem. It wasn't. Let's move along. And we also learned there is no timestamp on the Genesis 48 Abrahamic covenant to Ephraim. It's not going to expire, okay? And you're going to see why that's important right now. So let's move ahead to Genesis 49 and look at our Judah supremacy claim. We're going to click this and share this tab instead. And I just put in the question to Google, when did Judah receive the Abrahamic covenant? And, you know, I don't blindly trust AI, but here was the answer. Oh, well, Judah did not receive the Abrahamic covenant directly. No shit, because Ephraim just did a chapter before. The covenant was made with his ancestor Abraham. However, we don't really give a shit that Abraham gave it to Isaac and Isaac gave it to Jacob, and then God confirmed it to Jacob, and then Jacob gave it to Ephraim. Forget about all that. Forget about those parts. Because Judah's tribe was singled out to receive a significant portion of the Abrahamic covenant's promises, specifically the promise of kingship. Excuse me? I don't recall kingship being one of the three parts of Abrahamic covenant. Let's see, we have land, nation, blessing to nations, blessing all peoples, and seed. Is anything in those three pieces called kingship? No, it is not. Liars. Liar, liar, liar. Pants on fire. All right. So we're going to check out this promise to kingship. First of all, promise of kingship is not part of the Abrahamic covenant. And they're claiming that Judah got the messianic lineage through Jacob's blessing in Genesis 49. Really? You think so? Supposedly, Jacob gave Judah a special blessing that designated his tribe, Judah, as the royal line from which the Messiah would come. Jacob's blessing years later, Jacob blessed his sons. And in Genesis 49, he blessed Judah specifically, foretelling that the scepter would not depart from his line until Shiloh comes. This blessing designated the tribe of Judah as the one from which the kings of Israel and ultimately the Messiah would come. Judah's tribe inherited the promises of kingship as a fulfillment of the larger Abrahamic covenant, which promised that all families on earth would be blessed through his descendants. So now somehow, in order to bless the descendants, we have to have a promise of kingship. Guys, this is such bullshit. This is nowhere in the text. First of all, we've already tracked the Abrahamic covenant back in the Meet Ephraim series. Go there. There ain't no kingship in the Abrahamic covenant. That's the first thing, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing, it went to Ephraim, asshole, not Judah. And it went to Ephraim literally one chapter previously. But they don't want you to know that. So that's the official story. AI, I don't really trust AI, but it did give you the overview of the bullshit story that we've all heard a million times, right? Judah is, the line of Judah has to come from that lineage, and they're forever kings, and they're going to hold this up, blah, 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 blah. So we've all heard that story before, and they're claiming that story comes from Genesis 49, which is part of the Abrahamic covenant. That's their claim, and they're sticking to it. They completely ignore Genesis 48, and they bullshit their way through Genesis 49, which we're going to see right now. Share this tab instead. Now, the first thing I want to point out here is that in Genesis 48, in the Ephraim blessing, the Ephraim and Manasseh, with just the tent of Joseph, where the Abrahamic covenant was actually given, there was no timestamp. Genesis 49 has a timestamp. And what is that timestamp? We've talked about this last time. Jacob calls his sons and said, gather yourselves together so that I may tell you what shall come to you in the last days. How is this the Abrahamic covenant if it doesn't even come to them until the last days? This is a prophecy, not an Abrahamic covenant. Now, these are the same last days that Peter's standing in his speech in Acts, that he says we're in the last days. And he quotes Joel, because Joel was talking about the last days. So we're connecting all these last day stuff to show you can't just throw words out, guys, because you want Judah to be kings forever all through the Bible. That's not what it says. So right there, we have a problem. If they're claiming that Judah gets kingship forever to bless the nations, well, apparently not. Because if this whole thing starts off with, I'm going to tell you what's going to come to you in the last days. So any Judah kings before the last days don't count, apparently. It's not the Abrahamic covenant, because the Abrahamic covenant doesn't say anything about kings. Like, it's so absurd how they just make shit up. All right, so gather yourselves and hear, sons of Jacob. We went through, we kind of read through this before. We definitely went through Simeon and Levi, and we talked about their weapons are the instruments of cruelty. Don't go near those motherfuckers, right? We did that. And how their rage and their wrath was fierce and cruel. Okay? Well, that's the incident that Jacob's talking about here that we discussed last time. How they got really violent and bananas. Well, look at, they slaughtered a whole freaking village after forcing them to circumcise. So there's a problem there. So right after he talks about the cruelty of those two sons of Leah, he moves along to the next son of Leah. Okay? And notice he's going in order. He's going in birth order here. He's not going in favoritism order. He's going in birth order because we know Benjamin was the last to be born, right? And that's when Rachel died, giving birth to Benjamin. Well, who was second last to be born? That would be Joseph, who gets the big chunky blessing because he was the favorite. Gotten through all this with the order of birth of the sons when we went through the Ephraim series. So that's why we had Reuben first, and then Simeon and Levi, and now Judah. Judah's the fourth brother between Jacob and Leah. Now that Levi is scattered and Simeon is scattered because they're assholes, we're going to get to Judah. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Sounds violent. Your father's sons will bow down before you. This means like give kind of like you do a curtsy, right, in front of people. Judah, as a lion's cub, you shall come up from the prey, my son. He shall lie down and crouch as a lion, and as a lioness, put a pin in lioness, Who shall stir him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and the people shall be gathered to him. Now it goes on to talk about Shiloh. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, and they're saying that this gives Judah kingship and supremacy. But if we know that the lion isn't Judah, the lion is Babylon, right? So let's read this from that perspective. As a lion's cub, not a lion. Judah is like a lion's cub. You will come up from the prey. This doesn't say Judah's eating the prey. It says he's coming up out of the prey. He's growing out of the prey. Okay? The lion cub isn't attacking the prey. The lion cub is coming up from the prey. The lion cub was one of the prey. So the lion came in, okay, devoured the sons of Jacob. And Judah, as a lion's cub, not a lion, the lion's whelp, the lion's proxy, the lion's baby. Cubs don't rule. Cubs are trained by lions. Children are trained by parents, right? The parent of a lion cub would be the lion, which is Babylon. So Judah, as a lion's cub, you, who is you? You is Judah. You shall come up from the prey, my son. You're going to come up and be adopted by the lion from the prey. Get it? Judah is part of the prey. He's not the lion that attacked. And he's going to come up from the prey, my son. Then I have you highlighted here because then we switch pronouns in the middle of a line. He shall lie down. Well, who is he? It doesn't say you, Judah, shall lie down and crouch as a lion and as a lioness. No. Who is crouching down? He shall lie down and crouch as a lion and as a lioness. This also shows like this has a connotation of like relaxing on the throne. And who shall stir him? Not who shall stir Judah, the lion. Judah's not the lion. And then the scepter shall not depart from Judah. There does not say that Judah is holding the scepter in his hand. Judah is the cub, not the lion. It doesn't say Judah carries it, and he's not even holding the scepter. Never mind wielding the scepter of power. Why do we know he's not holding the scepter like a king does? Well, because it's between his feet. What's between his feet? The lawgiver is between his feet. Does this say Judah is the lawgiver? No, it says there is a lawgiver between his feet. So we have a scepter that he's not holding and a lawgiver that's between his feet. This scepter, this law-giving scepter, is between his feet. It's not in his hand. If you have something between your feet, you can't move. You're locked in place. Sit down on the throne as if you are a king and put a ruling, law-giving staff between your feet. You can't move. You can't walk. The scepter is not being held and wielded by Judah. The scepter is trapping Judah, preventing their movement forward. Why is the scepter trapping Judah? Because Judah's not the lion. Judah is the lion's whelp. the lion that is trained by the real lion, which is Babylon. That's what I'm saying. And how long is the scepter going to hold Judah hostage and the lawgiver trip him up? Well, it's going to stay there, Judah, until Shiloh comes. Judah is contained by a law-giving scepter of a lion until Shiloh comes. Now, this doesn't say the scepter shall not depart from Judah until Judah comes to take the scepter from Judah. Who is taking the scepter from Judah? That would be Shiloh. Shiloh and Judah are different. Therefore, whoever's coming to take this, to free Judah from the scepter and the lawgiver, whoever's coming to free Judah is Shiloh, not Judah. Judah's not freeing Judah. Judah's not going to have the scepter until Judah comes and takes it from Judah. So Shiloh can't be Judah. Shiloh is the Messiah. Therefore, the Messiah also can't be Judah. And the people shall be gathered to him. Who is him? Him is Shiloh. Shiloh comes to free Judah from the lion's scepter. Let's read that again with that perspective of Babylon being the lion and Judah being trapped by the lion, being raised from the prey of the sons of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, Jacob, Israel. They all get slaughtered by Babylon, Persia. Okay? They're all taken away. Babylon comes in. Babylon's our spiritual infrastructure, political infrastructure, little bit, all that. Okay? Let's read it again. You, Judah, your brothers may praise you, but your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down before you. Judah, as Babylon's cub, as Babylon's proxy, you shall be raised up from the prey. So he, Babylon, will lie down and crouch as a lion and as a lioness. Who shall stir him? Who's him? Him is Babylon the lion. Babylon's scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a Babylonian Persian lawgiver from between his feet from tripping up Judah, until Shiloh comes. Because why does Shiloh come? Shiloh comes to set the captives free. Shiloh is not Judah taking the scepter from Judah for Judah. Jesus can't be Judah. He can't be the lion of the tribe of Judah because he's Shiloh. And the people shall be gathered to Shiloh. It's a whole different ballgame. And now we talk all about the Messiah, who does not come from Judah because he's Shiloh. So this is a whole different ballgame than what you've been told. That's our premise. That's our premise. So first of all, let's recap here. Genesis 49 is about the last days. Genesis 49:1 opens with, I will tell you what shall befall you in the last days, that Peter's talking about while he's quoting Joel in Acts. So this isn't tribal personality. It's a prophetic, socio-political, and spiritual positioning for the last days. It's a time-bound map, not a forever trait list. Judah's a cub, not a lion. Genesis 49, Judah is a lion's whelp. A cub is not sovereign. It's not a sovereign king. It's a proxy in training. Babylon is the lion. Judah is Babylon's trained cub or proxy. The priesthood and the elites were taken in Babylonian captivity and brought back and hijacked the rulership and even called themselves kings of Judah, although they weren't. We've laid this out in the last few videos. The scepter shall not depart from Judah because it's blocking him. It's holding them captive until Shiloh comes. It's between his feet, not in his hand. Judah's among the prey, being raised up under the lion's wing, if you will, as the lion's cub. This is about a block, not a baton of rulership and kingship. Judah is stalled, trapped, tripped up. He's not ruling. And we see that he's not ruling when you go back to our previous videos showing that the Edomites were ruling. The Levite priesthood was ruling. The Babylonian Persian was ruling, right? The Hasmonean dynasty was. None of these people are Judah. None of these people are Judah. Herod was ruling in the last days that Peter was standing in. You're going to tell me that Herod was Judah? The prophecy says this is in the last days. Peter's talking about the last days in Acts, saying we're in the last days. That's why we're talking, buddy. All the way back to Joel, and he quotes Joel, and he quotes David. So who's ruling in the last days? Because this Genesis 49 is in the last days, right? So Judah's not ruling anything. Herod's ruling. Babylon the lion is ruling, not Judah. Now, this 49 thing gets a little messy. When you break it down in Greek versus Hebrew, it reads a little bit differently. But I'm going to tell you this. I don't care if you look at the Greek or the Hebrew. It all ends up with Judah not being the lion, okay? One of them talks, I believe it's the Greek, says, it's not the staff is between his feet, it's between the thighs, which talks about the loins or the lineage, but we still got the until clause, until Shiloh comes, okay? And that just tells me we know historically who was ruling in the last days that Peter was talking about standing in, okay? It wasn't Judah. Judah was not ruling, like, ever, okay? The Hasmoneans took over, the Maccabees, the Levites, Babylonians, Persians, the Greeks came in, the Romans came, there was a whole clusterfuck. It wasn't Judah. It was everybody except Judah was ruling at the time, okay? So there is no lineage, right, of Judah. It's a hijacked lineage, and it's only ruling until Judah is trapped by this proxy Babylon lion until. Sometimes it doesn't say Shiloh. Sometimes it says to whom it belongs. Well, who does it belong? It belongs to Shiloh. It belongs to the Messiah. Okay, but it's a messianic thing. So when the Messiah comes, it's going to go to him who it belongs, which isn't Judah and isn't Babylon. And it also says they may praise you. You're like kind of like, well, your brothers, the sons of Jacob, may praise you, but it's all going to fall apart. So Shiloh is the one that's taken this law-giving scepter away. And Shiloh is not the lion. So that leaves us with the question, well, who is Shiloh? Well, for that, we go to Micah and share this tab instead. Now we're going to open, I'm just going to warn you, we're going to open a big old can of worms with Micah here. So we're going to go straight to the Greek because there's a couple things here I want to show you. But now the daughter shall be obstructed by an obstruction. Okay, you don't know who the daughter is yet. Maybe you do. But we've got Zion and we've got a daughter of Zion. And we are not talking about this today. We are putting this on the list of next series that we have to start because this is a big one. Micah is one of my favorites. So we're going to read all of Micah to put this quote in context. So put a pin in this. This is really exciting to me. So it's really hard for me not to talk about Micah, okay? Because I love David and it's a thing and oh my gosh. I'll give you a clue at the end, but we're not going down this rabbit hole. Just know that there's a janky-ass daughter that happens to be Jerusalem, that is identified as Jerusalem. And Jerusalem is the daughter of Zion. Therefore, in Micah, Zion is not Jerusalem. We pointed this out way back, and I think, I don't know, when we read through Psalm 78, and I said in the end of Psalm 78, when they ritually cursed Ephraim, they attached David to Judah, and they attached Zion to Jerusalem. And that's not true. I said Zion is not Jerusalem. It isn't. And you're going to see that when we go through and read all of Micah to put this in context. This is why I get really excited, because it's a Davidic thing, okay? But Micah frames Jerusalem as the daughter of Zion. Zion is Davidic. Jerusalem is not. So just know that Zion is David's place and God's place and God's courtroom and the seat of God's mountain justice covenant. And Zion births a daughter. And this is a janky-ass daughter, according to Micah. And the janky-ass daughter is identified as Jerusalem. So, Jerusalem will be obstructed by an obstruction. He ordered conflict for us. They, the enemies, shall strike a rod upon the jaw of the tribes of Israel. This is a fourth coming in. And you, Bethlehem, of the house of Ephrath, not the house of Judah, okay? Not the village of Ephrath, although it is, okay? Bethlehem, the house of Ephrath. This is lineage. This is tribal. This is why I'm telling you, the land given in the Abrahamic covenant was Bethlehem Ephrathah, the house of the Ephrathites, Rachel's sons, Rachel's burial, Abrahamic covenant, Genesis 48. This is a DNA seed line remnant. Davidic sons are very few among the thousands of Judah. So you're surrounded. You're among the tribes of Judah. You're not one of the tribes of Judah. You are surrounded. From out of you, house of Ephrathah, not house of Judah, shall come forth the one being the ruler of Israel, not in Israel, of Israel. And his going forth from the beginning, from eons of days. And account of this, he'll appoint them unto a time of giving birth, and she, which is not Mary, this is Israel, will give birth, and the remnants of her brethren shall return unto the sons of Israel. He shall stand in tendon strength of the Lord, and in the glory of the name of the Lord their God they shall exist. For now he shall be magnified unto the uttermost parts of the earth. The daughter, Jerusalem, is obstructed, and by an obstruction, we just read about that obstruction, which would be the scepter of the lion, right? That's the obstruction. Jerusalem's being trapped. Who, Bethlehem of the house of Ephrath, tucked away there in that little land in Judah, are very few among the thousands of Judah. Out of you, Davidic lineage, will come forth to be the ruler of Israel, not the ruler in Israel. This isn't about a land-based king. It is about a multi-jurisdictional, multi-dimensional override. Talked about this 1,000 times. He's the ruler of the people of Israel. Who is Israel? Israel are the sheep, the lost sheep. Israel now are the people who follow the king. That's who Israel is. Okay, so we have Micah, and Micah shapes up for us. So that's who Shiloh is. That's who Shiloh is. And we will put a pin in the rest of Micah, because Micah gets really fun. So why in Judah matters? Well, because Ephrathah is our northern remnant lineage. Ephraim is northern tribe, right? But they're tucked away as a remnant in the south of the land given in the Abrahamic covenant, which is Bethlehem. And the city is located in Judah's territory, but it's not of Judah's lineage. So this override, Messiah, comes from within the land, but not within the tribe. Does that make sense? It comes from the seed of the Ephrathites. And I don't care where Jesus is born. I've said it before, I'll say it again. According to Micah, in this prophecy, Jesus could be born in New Jersey as long as he's an Ephrathite. He has Ephrathite seed from that covenant land. As long as he's from those sons of Rachel, he's eligible to be the Messiah. And the land of the sons of Rachel is tucked within Judah, not within Ephraim. And this fits God's pattern perfectly because God always has a remnant planted elsewhere. He's got Joseph in Egypt, preserving the seed outside. Moses was raised in Pharaoh's house. He was a tactical override from within enemy walls. Jesus was, quote unquote, a Judahite, but with Ephrathite lineage. He's got the override protocol embedded in the proxy territory. That's his lineage. Whether you think Jesus was born in Judah territory or Galilee territory, don't care. Either way, he's got the lineage. God doesn't glamour the tribe. Okay? He plants the fix inside the breach. And the remnant, that little piece, all of Ephraim in the north are a bunch of dipshits. But there's a remnant, a tiny little scroll line tucked away, the Davidic sons of Rachel. And that remnant is always preserved, separated, and strategically positioned. Judah has no special covenant status. Sorry, not sorry. This tribal supremacy is a myth. Judah tribe, or the residents of Judah's kingdom, or Judah providence, depending on how you see it through the history of the Bible. That's a tribe. Judah can mean tribe, residents of Judah, or Judea providence, later on under the Romans. Any of them are welcome to accept the Davidic king's override, just like everyone else. But they don't have a special deal. Sorry, not sorry. Genesis 48 and 49 are quote unquote, Jewish. Nobody in Genesis was Jewish. Jewish is a religion that came about post-Babylon and Persia. That's what it is. Jewish is a priesthood religion that made itself ethnocentric because in order to rule the people, they had to tie themselves to quote-unquote Judah. Why did they tie themselves to Judah and not anybody else? Well, because everybody else was already gone. The only people that were left were the people and a few people in Judah, and we're going to learn more about that too. So they're like, oh, well, we came from David, and we're Judah, so we're just going to rule the whole place now on behalf of Persia. That's what happened. Okay, there were no Jewish in Genesis 48 and 49, not even close. To all my Jewish brethren out there, just like I say to my Christian brethren, just because you use the Bible to justify some kind of ethnocentric sacrificial system of religion from the Babylonian Persian elites in the 500s BC, doesn't mean it's any more valid, doesn't mean you have any coded wisdom more than any other institutionalized, priesthood-run religion. The rabbis are no more chosen, no more wise, and no more valid than anybody else, than the dipshits over running the Calvary Chapel or the Catholic Church of the Vatican. Y'all are the same. You're corrupt, you're full of shit, and just because you say you're Judah doesn't matter anyway, because Judah has no supremacy to begin with. I don't care if you call yourselves Judah or not. That ship sailed when the corrupt Levite priesthood took over under Persia. Judah was long gone. You have no supremacy any more than the Vatican does. Completely invalid claims, and it's ridiculous. So stop reading the mail of the covenant sheep, trying to edit it, and stick it back in the mailbox and tell us it says something it doesn't. So let's do a little tribal reality check here. Every tribe failed miserably. They've all been glamored, compromised, corrupted, scattered, or hijacked. They've all mixed with pagan bloodlines. All of them. Simeon and Levi, violent, usurped, representing Babylon and Persia. That's who the Levites are. Judah, blocked, proxy trained by Babylon, identity stolen. And we haven't even gotten to the other tribes yet. But so far, it's not looking too good for Judah or Levi. Just saying. Not to say the other tribes did any better. They didn't. You'll see as we go on, I go after everybody. No tribe gets a pass. The dipshit awards are evenly distributed around here, okay? All the sons of Jacob were absolute dipshits, and they all blew it. There's no blame and finger pointing to be had because nobody comes out of this looking good. Judah was a proxy, not the perpetrator. Judah's a lion's whelp. He's a cub, not a sovereign. He's positioned, not empowered. The scepter is between his feet, blocking his movement. He's waiting for Shiloh to free him. He's not wielding authority. In Micah 2, we saw that the Shiloh override comes from Bethlehem Ephrathah. That Davidic lineage seed was planted in Judah's land, but it wasn't of Judah's tribal bloodline. Psalm 78 outlines a priesthood coup where Ephraim was ritually cursed with dark occult. Judah was glamored as the new priestly line, but they weren't, because it was the Levites taking over the whole time on behalf of Babylon, Persia. Because the Babylonian trained elites staged a client priesthood takeover, just like client kings. Well, in came the client priesthood, and the Levites made sure that was them. Judah didn't seize power. Judah was used as a vessel. It was a proxy for Babylon's lion logic. That's what we have here. And why this matters? Because rhetoric is dangerous, you guys. Everyone's out there running around associating quote unquote Jewish with Judah and Jesus with Judah. That's not fair. And Jesus with Jewish. That's not fair and it's not accurate. Blaming Judah. Now, Judah was an asshole. Don't get me wrong. I don't like Judah around here. Judah is wicked. He's a complete asshole. All through biblical texts. He's wicked. He's duplicitous. He's an evil motherfucker. Judah is not a good guy. But blaming Judah is a cop-out. Because they were all dipshits. The real breach came from Babylon-trained priest politics. Priesthoods and politicians. That's where it came from. Judah's tribal identity was hijacked, glamored, and weaponized. So, although he's a villain, he's not this villain. He's a blocked cub, trapped as part of the prey in a fog-backed bullshit priesthood system. That's what this is. So I always say, every tribe has equal measure of the dipshit awards, but not the remnant. That's a different story. Ephraimites, the tribe of Ephraim, who were living in the north, and they fucked it up pretty good. But David's lineage was Ephraim in the southern district, which were called Ephrathites because they got that special piece of Abrahamic covenant land at Rachel's burial site. They got Ephrath. So they weren't called Ephraimites, they were called Ephrathites because it's just a little bit different because they were the remnant. Same bloodline, same tribe, different location. They were in the covenant location where Rachel was buried, Jacob's beloved. And 1 Samuel says David was the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem in Judah, not of Judah. Micah 5:2 is out of you, Bethlehem Ephrathah. Genesis 48, we see that covenant to Ephraim, which is permanent, not time-stamped. The registry flows through Joseph to Ephraim, to David, to Joseph, to Jesus. Biologically, patriarchal seed. Yes, I said patriarchal seed. Go cry in your virgin birth manger. It's not real. Covenants don't pass through magical sperm. Covenants pass through Davidic sperm. The remnant held the line. This lineage needs to be honored because this lineage held the line when the rest of the sons fucked it up. And it's not because they were perfect. It's because they were positioned, preserved, and scroll backed with that covenant. They just kept their covenant. So If this holds everywhere else, it's got to hold in Revelation 5:5 too. Let's unpack it. Look, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David is overcome. That's what I'm talking about. They use that to say Jesus is the root of David and the Lion of Judah. No. We've got a lion, the nominative masculine singular subject, the one from Judah. So what it's saying is the lion, by the way, the one from tribe of Judah, okay, the lion from Judah. Remember our Judah blessing in 49? That's the one, that lion, the one from Judah, that one, that lion, the root of David. We have another article here that connotates a feminine singular subject. So we got two subjects here. One is masculine, one is feminine. I want you to notice right here, I hope you can see, this is one article. It's bookended, the line is bookended with the same article on each side of it. So this is saying the lion, the one from Judah. Okay, so the lion is bookended with the same article, setting it apart. The one from Judah connotates a descriptor of the lion, okay, not of the root. It's a descriptor for the lion that has a bookended matching article. Then we change articles, and we've got a feminine singular root. Why is that important? Well, because your scholars and your priesthood tell you that no. An apposition means it's a list of attributes of one subject. It's two different subjects, but they're pushed together into one subject. It's a compound subject. So the lion and the root are the same thing. It's a list of attributes. The Lion of Judah and the root of David are the same. They're two nouns smooshed together to make a list describing one subject. I disagree with that argument. I say we have a dual subject, which is shown by analyzing the articles. So a traditional reading treats the Lion of Judah and the root of David as appositional. It means two titles for the same subject, and that subject is Jesus. I disagree. Jesus can't be the Lion of Judah. Jesus is Shiloh. Jesus is from Ephrathah, small, surrounded by the tribes of Judah. From Bethlehem Ephrathah, Rachel's sons. He can't be Leah's sons, Judah. He can't be the lion, the lion's Babylon. Lions aren't good. Lions aren't positive. Lions are bad. Lions are always bad. Lions are never good. That's not Jesus. You don't just switch it up at the end and make Jesus something else. The article observation is very sharp here. Each noun phrase, the Lion of Judah and the root of David, has its own article, and they differ in gender. I don't mean gender, like masculine, feminine. If you're taking Spanish, you know what I mean by masculine, feminine nouns. Well, our articles are connotating that. The problem is this breaks the grammatical expectation for apposition, which puts them together as one. Because when you put them together as one, it typically shares both the gender and the article structure. This doesn't do that. This separates the gender and it separates the article structure. So the presence of two distinct articles, and one of them connotating the other with a bookend, and the gender divergence supports the claim that these are two separate subjects, not one subject with two descriptors. The verb agreement has overcome. This is third person singular. So this is singular too. So if we've got two subjects, that means it's grammatically tied to just one of them. Either the first subject, the lion, or the second subject, the root, overcame. So if the lion and the root were truly one subject, well, the verb could still be singular. But the syntax poetically dangles the verb between two candidates, meaning there is no direct modifier for this verb. So what this sentence is doing in the Greek is we've got one subject, which is the Lion of Judah. We've got another subject, which is the root of David, and two subjects, singular verb. So one of those two subjects has overcome. And it doesn't tell us which one it is. It kind of leaves it dangling, like you're in suspense. Like, look, we got the Lion of Judah over here, and in the other corner, we've got the root of David. Think of a boxing ring, right? And one of them overcomes. But it doesn't tell you which one, because that verb does not attach to either until the Lamb walks in. The Lion is named first, but the root of David is loaded. Especially if you understand that root means origin, not descendant, not magical creator logos. So let's just think for a minute. What is the root of David? What is the root? Don't ask who. Ask what. What does it mean? The root of David. Well, the root of a plant is the origin of the plant, right? It's not the flower of the plant. So this root doesn't come out of David. It comes before David. So then what's the root of David? Well, some evangelicals will tell you, oh, it's the Logos who created David, because the Logos is the creator, right? And they're trying to make the Logos, the Christ entity, they're trying to make that God. So they're saying, well, that's proof that Jesus is God because he created David. Not so fast. God didn't create David. God created Adam. And Adam's lineage led to David. And then David's lineage led to Jesus. So this isn't talking about magical entity creating David. That's not what this is. Otherwise, it would say the root of Adam, if it wanted it to be God, or the Logos entity called the Christ. It's not the root of Adam, it's the root of David. So what is the root of David? Well, the root of David is Adam. The root of David is Adam. And Adam means mankind, humanity. That's what Adam means. This is not about a magical creator. A root is origin, ancestor, not a son. So if Adam is the root, the premise here, Adam is the root of David, not the Logos. So what overcame here is humanity, the human lineage. Why would humanity, have to overcome? Because humanity, Adam signed the death contract in the Garden of Eden, and that death contract has to be reversed, not by a magical sperm entity. If that was true, we wouldn't need an Abrahamic covenant, we wouldn't need a Davidic covenant. The death contract in the garden that Adam made has to be reversed through Adamic humanity, not a magical sky being. Otherwise, there's no purpose for the Bible. There's no purpose for lineage. There's no purpose for genealogy. There's no purpose for the Abrahamic covenant. There's no purpose for the Davidic covenant. It's all a waste of time. The genealogies mean something. The covenants mean something. The fact that it's passed down through patriarchal biological seed means something. Humanity overcame. And this setup aligns with the broader forensic decoding of all of this. Jesus is the Davidic heir, the rightful king, and he fulfills the covenant. Jesus fulfilled the covenant. Jesus fulfilled the covenant. You don't even know what that means if you don't know what the covenants are and who holds them. He fulfilled both the Abrahamic and Davidic covenants through the Ephrathite lineage. And that fulfillment is the override of Adamic contract of death. And he's doing it not as a divine lion being, but as a human Davidic covenant override. So the lion, the Babylon proxy via Judah, is defeated by the root, which is the Adamic lineage filled in Jesus. This isn't a contradiction. This is a dimensional reversal of the contract of death. That's what this is. So Revelation 5:5 is not some magical list of titles. We don't have a lion, a root, and a lamb, all the same guy. It's a poetic tension between two different subjects, the lion proxy and the Adamic root. We've got Babylon versus humanity, and the override walks in. The lamb walks in. Babylon versus humanity, and Jesus walks in as the lamb. The Greek hums with covenant clarity. We know who overcame. The tension is lifted, and the fog of the Babylonian priesthood is left wailing and gnashing its teeth in court. So, Jacob adopts Joseph's sons. Ephraim receives the covenant. This is not time-stamped. It's a permanent registry override, bypassing Judah's tribal claim. Because Judah's time-bound to the end days, and it ain't even him. Genesis 49 is a scepter block. Scepter shall not depart from Judah, but it doesn't say Judah will hold it until Judah comes to take it from Judah. That's circular and absurd. The scepter is between his feet, blocking his movement. Shiloh must come from within Judah's land, but not within Judah's lineage. When I say land, I mean kingdom, from Judah's kingdom, because that Ephrathite land belongs to Ephraim. Psalm 78 is our ritual curse because our priesthood had to do a coup. Ephraim is not only rejected, but he is ritually cursed with dark occult. But he's not genealogically erased. The priesthood gets transferred to Judah, but this is a post-Babylon, post-captivity edit and redaction. It's a political maneuver, not divine reversal. Babylonian trained elites staged a priesthood coup, glamored as divine favor. The Levites never had any land, nor kingship, nor anything. They came in, claimed themselves to be Judah, and ruled on behalf of the Persians. And we see that with the Hasmoneans. We see that with the Herods. We see that all throughout the whole thing since the Maccabees reared their ugly heads. So what happened to peasantry Judah? If this is the elites? Well, hint. I told you Micah is so exciting for me. I love reading Micah, and I can't wait to read it with you. But Micah 1, interestingly, shows that Assyria, the first captivity, remember that? Assyria that took the quote-unquote 10 tribes away? The 10 tribes of Israel in the Assyrian captivity? Well, guess what? Assyria breached the gates of Judah. Assyria didn't only take the 10 tribes of northern Israel. They breached the town of Lachish, which is in Judah. Oh, Assyria did. Long before Babylon came along. Peasantry Judah, or at least some of them, were dispersed right along with the north. Judah and Israel left together. And that includes people from Simeon, people from Benjamin, foreigners living in the land, and bloodline Judah. Judah was breached by Assyria. They leave that out. There was an escape hatch, though, and this makes it really exciting. In Micah 1, you see an escape hatch. You see this wonderful cave system. And that cave system, well, it happens to be the same cave system that David hid in. I'm not kidding. The escape hatch is the Davidic cave system that David hid in. Same thing. It's awesome. So Assyria came in, and the cave system of David was the only escape hatch when they ran towards the gates of Jerusalem. Judah's peasantry was dispersed by Assyria as well, not just Babylon. And that little factoid that we pull out of Micah makes James' greeting in the New Testament make so much more sense when he says, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad, greetings. He's not just talking about Judah. He's not talking about Judah either. He's talking about the 10 tribes of Israel in the north. And he's talking about the tribes in the south. All of them. All of the sons of Jacob who are dispersed abroad. He's clearly not talking to Jerusalem's priesthood. Okay? He's writing to the remnant from Judah all the way to Asher and everyone in between. The elites were dispersed by Babylon. Here's our layout so that you don't confuse Zion with Jerusalem. I showed you that in Micah. We're going to establish this when you go back and read Micah. I'm telling you, Micah is a bombshell. that Psalm 78 was good. Wait till we get to Micah. Micah's exciting for me. But Zion isn't Jerusalem, guys. Zion was absorbed by Jerusalem, but it wasn't. We've got Jerusalem was originally a Canaanite fortress on Mount Moriah. And in 2 Samuel, we see that David conquered it. But it wasn't the full city like we imagine now. It was the city of David, which was its own special place. The Temple Mount, the northern expansion, Judah-centricness as the political Washington, D.C., that came later. First, Zion was the city of David. And Zion, or the city of David, was located on the southeastern ridge, well south of the Temple Mount. The city of David was originally called Zion and renamed after David's conquest. It functioned as the political and spiritual capital long before the temple was ever built. It was not absorbed to Jerusalem until later. Empire expansion and Ephrath or Bethlehem, well, that's 6 miles south of Jerusalem in the hill country of Judah. And that's the registry anchor for David's birth, Rachel's burial, and our override seed. So why do modern priesthoods and maps and biblical scholars get it wrong? Well, because they're pushing the Judah-centric narrative. That's why. Modern Jerusalem absorbed the city of David into its municipal sprawl. Don't tell me you don't understand suburban sprawl. I lived in San Diego way back in the 80s and early 90s. And San Diego sprawl literally goes from like Tijuana to frickin' Orange County. There's no difference anymore. It's just one giant shopping mall after the next, one mini mall after the other, all the way from Mexico straight up to Orange County. But it didn't used to be like that. It used to have all these little tiny beach towns, and they were all separate. Solana Beach was separate from Encinitas, which was separate from Leucadia, which was separate from Del Mar, which was separate from, it goes all the way up, and all the way to Carlsbad, Oceanside, all separate. Now one of them runs into the next, which runs into the next, which runs into the next. You know where the hell you are. Because suburban sprawl, as things grow. Well, that's what happened, guys. Modern Jerusalem absorbed the city of David when it sprawled out. But ancient texts, our ancient scrolls, it's a distinct city of its own. The city of David is not synonymous with Jerusalem in the Bible. The city of David is Zion. Jerusalem is not. David went up to Jerusalem from Bethlehem. Then he went back down to the city of David. It was the very first override covenant zone, not just a neighborhood in Jerusalem. These are three very different places with 3 very different purposes. Each has its own residence and its own tactical role in biblical text. But then you might ask, well, if Ephraim is David, who's also Jesus, who's not the line of Judah, why is Ephraim missing? If this all really is true, and Psalm 78 ritually cursed Ephraim and got rid of him, Ephraim, you'll hear this, Ephraim's not going to make it in the end times. Ephraim was erased. Okay, dipshits, Ephraim didn't do anything worse than anybody else. I don't know what Bible you're reading. And if Jesus and David are Ephrathites, Ephraim can't be erased. That's the remnant bloodline patriarch. So what's with Ephraim being quote-unquote erased in Revelation? Why doesn't Ephraim's name show up when all the tribes are numbered? Oh, because we've got one remnant bloodline. And all covenants are fulfilled in that remnant bloodline. We've got the Adamic. Humanity's breach must be fixed from within humanity. So Jesus inherits the Adamic responsibility through Joseph's human lineage. He inherits the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 48 because it transfers it to Joseph's line, specifically Ephraim. So Jesus, as Joseph's son, carries David's covenant seed, not through ritual, not through adoption, but through birthright. He also carries the Davidic covenant because Joseph, Jesus' dad, biological father from the seed, is of the house of David. So Jesus inherits the throne of David legally, biologically, not through some bullshit divine magical sperm entity. So all 3 of these contracts and covenants, I wouldn't say Adamic is a covenant, not with God at least, but all 3 of these things converge into one remnant bloodline. There's no ritual sacrifice needed. That's Levitical. That's not Davidic. There's no eternal son contract. That's Roman bullshit. That's Greek Hellenized Paul shit. That's not Davidic. All there is a badass Messiah from the kingdom of David. Registry fulfillment through God's promise and a lineage of humanity that held the fucking line when everyone else screwed it up. Ephraim's covenant's permanent, guys. There's no timestamp in Genesis 48. He got the Abrahamic lineage. That's registry transfer, guys. Ephraim isn't listed in Revelation 7, though. But that's not erasure. With all the information you have before, does it sound like Ephraim got erased? The northern Ephraim tribe were dipshits, but no bigger dipshits than, I don't know, Simeon, and he's in there. Levi's a dick, he's in there. Judah's wicked, he's in there. Like, why the hell would Ephraim be erased and nobody else is erased? Doesn't make sense, because they weren't erased. The Ephrathite remnant held the fucking line, even when the northern kingdom collapsed. So souls enter the Davidic kingdom through Jesus, son of David, via his Ephrathite lineage. They're not numbered because the sheep are already inside the gate. The kingdom's here. This isn't a tribal census. It's just harvest cycle fulfillment. The whole world is invited to enter through the Ephrathite lineage, which comes from Ephraim. How the hell are you going to number that? It's innumerable, so it's not numbered. And why is this important, guys? Well, because the lamb didn't die to appease some wrathful deity that the Levites worship in their temple with their blood rituals. That's Levitical lamb. Jesus is not the Levitical lamb. Jesus is the Passover lamb. He walked right into Revelation 5 wearing that wedding ring. He's the how. We've got three subjects. We've got Babylon, the Lion of Judah. We've got Adamic humanity, the root of David, that lineage, that human problem from the garden, the root, Adam, hello. And then our third subject is the lamb, the badass lamb who walks in as the how, not just the who. The override wasn't mystical. It's biological, tactical, and covenant-backed because God does not break a promise. If you follow God's promises through the Bible, it all makes sense. This flips theology. Jesus isn't some magical sperm divine being loophole like Amun-Re or Paul's Logos entity. He's a registry-coded Davidic heir who fulfilled every single covenant like a badass from within the breach. Flip those tables. He didn't come down from above it. So the claim, Ephraim was rejected? That's only in Psalm 78. And we just proved that to be a bunch of bullshit. In Genesis 48, Jeremiah 31, Hosea, and Isaiah, there's no covenant taken away. Priesthood agenda. That's what it was. They did post-exilic edits to Psalms and Chronicles. We've got the ark being moved from Ephraim, Shiloh, to Judah, Zion. This historical shift is used to justify temple centralization. But if the ark was moved from Shiloh to Zion, Judah, we know there's a difference. Psalm 78 reflects post-breach theology, post-Babylon. It promotes Judah and then attaches Zion to Judah rather than Zion to David. The tent of Joseph is Ephraim's legacy, you guys. And it's rejected simply to elevate Judah's priesthood narrative when they came back and did this on behalf of the Persians. There is a scholarly consensus that says Psalms and Chronicles were edited to support this temple monarchy. Not all of them, but certainly Psalm 78. And Chronicles is a fucking train wreck. Go ask the scholars about that one. It's a mess. Even the scholars have to admit it. It's such a mess. Because like the scholars like to cover shit up and be like, no, but they can't even hide how bad Chronicles is. So in summary, we have a theological agenda at play. We have a priesthood trying to justify Judah's supremacy. In Psalm 78, recounts Israel's failures, especially Ephraim's, and ends by elevating Judah and attaching David to Judah, and then attaching the priesthood to Judah, to David. It's ridiculous. This shift is widely interpreted as post-breach theological pivot. Ephraim's failure is framed as a spiritual rebellion. Judah's quote-unquote survival is portrayed as divine election, but unfortunately, Judah didn't survive. They were taken away with Assyria too. The psalm serves as a warning to Judah, the peasantry, and a justification for centralizing that temple worship post-Babylon and the Levitical ritual system. Scholars even argue that this reflects a Levitical priesthood agenda of teaching the next generations why Judah stayed, but Ephraim was kicked out. That stood for national pride and power. And Israel wasn't there to complain. It just reinforced obedience and ritual sacrifice temple loyalty as keys to survival. You had to lean on the priesthood. Same thing the Catholics do now. The church will save you. Come home to Mother Rome. You can't do it. You have to go to the priest. Same thing as medieval freaking Catholicism. Same thing. Same priesthood. Same ideas. You have to go through the Levitical priests. It's our God now. You can't have him. That's all they were doing to control the people. Now, just for background knowledge, in Judah, Babylonian religious practices were more prominently adopted by the elites, priests, and ruling class, rather than the commoners of Judah. Ephraim, the north, they were a little more, everybody kind of got involved in the party. But down in the south, it was definitely priesthood that jankified it a lot more than the commoners. And we see this in prophets like Jeremiah and Ezekiel. They're directed directly critiquing the leaders and the priests for leading the nation astray. The elites were much more exposed to Babylonian culture, religion, due to their political alliances, dirty dealings, trade, and proximity to all those foreign rulers. So practices like child sacrifice and celestial worship were introduced likely by the upper class. Not so different than today, is it? So, Babylonian idolatry. If I'm going to call the line Babylon, we better learn what Babylon with their religious spiritual practices were. Well, Judah, during the later years that were leading up to, I told you, it wasn't, we talked about this a few videos ago. It, not like all of a sudden Babylon came and everything went corrupt, right? There was a creeping corruption all the way up to the Babylonian captivity. So the priesthood was already corrupt. So particularly during the latter years, right before the Babylonian exile, Judah was heavily influenced by Babylon and Assyrian religious practices. And this included star worship, celestial bodies. We see this in 2 Kings. Judah adopted practices like worshiping the sun, the moon, the stars, which were all central to Babylonian religion. So participated in child sacrifice. The worship of Moloch, including child sacrifice, was practiced in Judah. And this reflects the influence of surrounding pagan culture. Also, straight out of Babylon, sorry, not sorry, Catholics, but we get the Queen of Heaven. Talked about this one before in Luke. But as mentioned in Jeremiah, the people of Judah worship the Queen of Heaven, who is likely Ishtar, who is a Babylonian goddess. This idolatry, this bitch, she's tied to fertility rituals and priesthood offerings. Yuppers. Hold on, Lady Babylon. Where are you? It's not clicking. You guys know how this is. Let me go back one more here. All right, so Ishtar's our Babylonian goddess. And the Queen of Heaven mentioned in Jeremiah is associated with Ishtar. the Babylonian goddess of fertility, love, and war. And where have we heard the Queen of Heaven? That's right. We did it in our Luke series. They're calling Jesus' mother the Queen of Heaven in the Catholic Church. That's a problem. Ishtar, this Queen of Heaven that's condemned in the Bible, is also linked to the Sumerian goddess Inanna. So don't let them fool you with the name changes. We talked about this in Bible series. She was worshipped widely in Mesopotamian cultures, and in Babylon mythology particularly, Ishtar was connected to Tammuz, who was portrayed as her lover and her consort. And Tammuz himself became a deity associated with vegetation and seasonal cycles, and his death and rebirth were central to ancient rituals. But this worship of Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven, involved cakes, drink, incense, and it angered and infuriated God because it represented turning away from his covenant and a blending or compromise of Israelite worship with pagan traditions. Remember the doctrine of Balaam, where Jesus said, don't compromise? It's idolatry. Remember Paul saying it's okay, eat food sacrificed to idols, make covenants with demons, it's okay. We'll talk about that a little more when we get to our Constantine video at some point. But this spirit of compromise and integrating these pagan religions, that's a big no-no. That's the doctrine of Balaam, and Jesus said, ooh, I'm going to make your children suffer intensely for that one. Let's not do that. Let's not do that, guys. But this Ishtar, Inanna, etc., she's got lots of names. Queen of Heaven lady from Babylon. Well, she loves her lions. She's known as loving those lions. She's linked to, among other things, male emasculation, fertility, celestial phenomenon, particularly the planet Venus. And funny enough, the identity of Lucifer, whether male, female, or both, is pretty complex when you get into the occult. And it really depends on the cultural, religion, or literary lens that you're looking at Lucifer through. But in the biblical context, the term quote-unquote Lucifer appears in Isaiah 14, and it's referring to the morning star, Venus. So we've got Lucifer associated with Venus. We've got Ishtar, the Queen of Heaven, associated with Venus. We've got Ishtar associated with all those lions. Look her up. Ishtar's always lounging about with her lions. She's known as the lion goddess. Ishtar, Babylon, lion, it's a thing. It's a thing. She's the lion lady, associated also with Venus. So when you kind of put all these coincidences together, maybe I'll put my tinfoil hat on. But the implications here in our 4-video series so far becomes a little more serious for both mainstream Judeo and Christian theology. If you look at it in the context of ritual and astral cursing of Ephraim within Psalm 78. And it gets even worse once we start to understand Solomonic magic. The Kabbalah. And, well, we already talked about the Catholic priesthood's method of exorcism using Mary's name. Remember we talked about that? If you don't remember, go back to the Luke series. It's somewhere in there when we talk about the quote-unquote Queen of Heaven. It all gets a bit alarming. And then you understand what I was baptized into as a child. Wasn't an occult secret society. Wasn't an abuse cycle. It's just the Catholic Church. So. We've got some pins. We've got some pins Yes, we do. Now we've got all of Micah to go through because it's so exciting to see Davidic Zion versus Solomonic Jerusalem start to take shape in Micah. We get to read, you guys, Hosea's entire scroll because it's a love letter to Ephraim, not a death certificate. Jeremiah's prophecy is post-exile. And this is where God reaffirms Ephraim's place as firstborn, just like Jacob said. And this is why we don't do an end time series and read Revelation, because talking to you end times preachers, you can't just haul off and read a few sentences from Paul and make up shit in Revelation. You need to understand the Old Testament before you can understand the New Testament. And that includes Old Testament vocabulary. So, to combat all this, I don't know, end times frenzy, what we're doing as we're reading the Bible. Because if you understand your covenant, it doesn't much matter if it's the end times or not. You don't need fear to sell tickets to your sermon. You don't have to show up on Sunday to find out when the asteroid's coming. What you need to do is be secure in your covenant and know what that means and make sure you're in the right one. So our Apotheosis series is more about vocabulary and defining terms, because words in the New Testament are defined in the Old Testament, like lion. And if you don't know who the lion is from the Old Testament, you're going to do something stupid in Revelation and assign Babylon's lion to Jesus, my king. We don't do that. Please don't wait for the Lion of the tribe of Judah to come and save you. It's the wrong guy. Just saying. So next, put a pin in all that. Put a pin in all that, because we're not going to run off and just haul off and read all of Micah. But just know, if you want to study it on your own or upcoming in the future, we've got to circle back to all this. Not to mention the entire David story with Aram from Paul's paganisms. Like, we got a lot of pins hanging. So for now, I'm going to wrap up this Babylonian fuckery psalm, even though we do have one more episode coming. I'm going to leave you hanging on that because I hope it'll be pretty quick. Maybe not. So the next thing you'll probably see, I reserve the right to change at any time, but you'll probably see us return to Luke. Now that we have all of this background knowledge, we can continue in Luke. We're going to jump over and visit Paul's paganisms and look at some of his ritual language in Acts 9:1 and that little dark occult piece that I keep pushing at with those nighttime demons he sends out. And then eventually, we'll come back to our dating and genealogy audit of our Babylonian fuckery psalm, and we'll take a look at the Caleb Joshua mess and the ridiculous proof of the Essenes being Judah-centric. And we'll continue with our psalm series and our Apotheosis series. Because after this psalm is wrapped up, well, we're only about halfway through our David psalm series. We got a long way to go. So we're going to start editing those and throwing those up as we work through Luke, work through Paul's paganisms, and do some more vocabulary and apotheosis as we go. So somehow, somewhere down the line, all these series will converge and overlap. So I hope you're following them. If you get lost and get confused, don't worry about it. It always comes back around. Or go back and review. And we'll see you next time.
Energy. Energy. You cannot fuck with this. Energy. You cannot fuck with this energy. Love to to all those in the flesh, all of those who are listening. Don't miss the message, judging me. You cannot fuck with this energy. Energy.